stay with us for the next session, which will start right now on the first so-called session 1 on financial tools. What is in for the European and African SMEs, where we will present financial tools which, for example, will be offered, are currently already offered by the German government with the German Development Cooperation Agency, GIZ, and as well as also the financing opportunities for SMEs offered by Ecobank, which has branch offices in 35 states in Africa. Thank you very much to everybody, and I will now wait for the entrance of the speakers of the next round, Mr. Marcel Tompkins and Mr. Dr. James R. Kanagwa from Ecobank in Ethiopia, as well as Mrs. Ayele Sikari Gabian, which also would like to say something to for example, for the financing of women entrepreneurs.
Every single point, but I'm happy to just get started, and also if there are questions later on, I'm very happy to answer them and help you better understand what we're trying to achieve with the special initiative. So generally, it has already been mentioned, the special initiative needs to be seen in the framework of the Marshall Plan with Africa, and it aims to implement also the G20 Compact with Africa. Both sort of have been implemented, or the special initiative in that way has been implemented since 2019, and our goals are to create more and better jobs in Africa. And we're really talking about a large-scale effort here to also try and see if we can set up a new form of cooperation with the private sector that is very much closely aligned with the needs of private companies. We also believe that in order to create these jobs in Africa, we need to strengthen the skill base of African companies and of African workers. And therefore, our goal is also to create training positions or apprenticeship positions. And this is something that, of course, coming from the German Development Cooperation, we have been a lot of experience in, especially looking at the German model of dual education. So this is a very important goal for us as well. But we don't only want to create new jobs, but also we want to improve the working conditions for existing jobs. And now, especially in the times of the COVID-19 crisis, our focus has been very quickly adapted to not just create, but also save jobs and to stabilize the supply chains between Africa and Europe. And how do we want to achieve this? I already mentioned it. We want to increase private investments into Africa. And here we focus, of course, on European companies to take them by the hand and support them on every step of the way to realize their investment in African countries. And the additional goal, of course, that we have here is that we don't just promote investment, but as had been mentioned now several times, we want to rebuild better, rebuild more sustainably. So we want to promote investments in sustainable sectors of the economy. The countries that we're active in have already been presented by Jacqueline Groth. I will quickly go over them and maybe give you an idea of the rationale that we have behind picking these countries and supporting certain sectors of the economy in these countries. So we have done extensive studies before engaging and before choosing these countries. So it's not just places or markets that are economically growing and viable, but also countries that can be a partner in a political sense, where there's really a reform process visible. Because we believe that political stability also plays a large role in attracting FDI. So I will start with Tunisia. Here we have identified the automotive and aerospace production as a cluster to be supported. Maybe by the way, in each of these countries, we do have a local team on the ground that is supporting these clusters and supporting local SMEs in particular. And I will get a little bit into detail later about Tunisia and what we're doing in the automotive sector there. In Morocco, we're also supporting the automotive sector as well as agribusiness. In Senegal, the clusters that we support are in food processing in the ICT sector, but also textiles. And in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, this is similar, though in Côte d'Ivoire, of course, I think most relevant today, we are also supporting companies active in renewable energy. In Rwanda, we're generally working with the Kigali Economic Special Zone. However, the clusters that we also try to support here, because we see these as growth sectors, is the agriculture sector, construction sector, and energy sector. In Ethiopia, of course, as many of you will know, a large growing sector is the textile sector and leather, which is why we have dedicated projects there supporting this. But also there's large investment opportunities in energy, in particular renewable energy. And as had already been mentioned, we're looking forward to including Egypt in the number of countries that we're active in. Here, the growth sectors are in food processing, textiles, and construction. And as you can see, some of these sectors are similar across countries. And this is, of course, because we have identified a few Pan-African megatrends that are actually not really impacted by even the current dire economic situation, but because of structural underlying streams of development, those sectors will grow regardless. And obviously, we have a very dynamic demographic in Africa. We have increasing urbanization. And so the needs of young African populations for mobility, digitalization, infrastructure waste, but also agribusiness are very strong. And we have set up dedicated programs in these sectors. It has already been mentioned, in the mobility sector, we have set up the Pan-African Mobility Alliance, or PAMA. And in the area of digitalization and business process outsourcing, the Digital Skills Accelerator Africa, or DSAA, is the program that we have launched now in several countries. These programs are open to other companies to join as well, and we would be looking forward to talk with you if you approach us about how we can include you in these. But we're also setting up projects in the other Pan-African megatrend sectors. Now, of course, today's focus is really on SMEs. And so we have set up in each of these countries a dedicated team that will engage with what we call the African Mittelstand, or African SMEs, and not just engage with them, but basically they will try to build a bridge between European and African entrepreneurs, so that we can, in Africa, provide consulting and financing solutions to both sides, improving the framework conditions for SMEs to be active in these countries, and generally work with them to increase the competitiveness of small and medium enterprises in regards to larger companies. And so by that, we really want to foster the cooperation between European and African SMEs. And we see, of course, today and the platform that was launched by CEA-PME as a great step towards that goal. And if you approach us regarding your projects, we would be very happy to connect you with our local colleagues that are experts in the fields and can help you with supporting your local SME needs. Now, of course, during the current COVID-19 crisis, this is a time for radical change, and we also see that it's a time for opportunity. Many companies have realized that their over-dependency on single production countries or a single production region like Asia has led to a risk for their supply chain. And so now many are looking to diversify their supply chains. And we want to support that movement, but support it in a way that benefits Africa. So in the short term, this of course means that the existing supply chains between Africa and Europe need to be strengthened. So we would help you if you have, for example, a local subsidiary company in Africa producing part or all of your product, or if you depend on agricultural inputs from an African supplier. We can support you to make that supply much more resilient and adapt to current corona restrictions, to the new regulations that are being applied in each individual country. And so in this sense, we're very happy to support you save jobs and save existing supply chains. In the medium term, as I'd mentioned, we really want to support the nearshoring of production from markets like Asia closer to production sites in Africa. And I think particularly this is relevant for Western Africa if we look at the US market, but also Northern Africa if we look at Europe. Because obviously not just a diversification of productions is envisioned, but really also generally in especially fast-paced sectors, being closer to your market is a real competitive advantage, like for example in the textile sector. So if you want to go that step and you want to relocate your existing production, we are very happy to support you here and on the way create also employment in Africa with you. How can we achieve this? What are our exact support offers? So generally, we offer quite a broad spectrum of services that we try to individually tailor to your company's needs. So we try to really approach African growth sectors in a holistic approach. So we have in the special initiative partnerships, or we foster partnerships, not just between companies, but also between academic institutions, European and African, as well as industry associations. So maybe some of you may know the German Academic Exchange Service, as well as our association partnership structure called Zézé. And we also support civil society engagement through Engagement Global to connect Europeans and Africans on a civil society level. And if you are having issues with quality, product quality, we have the physical and technical institution P.TV, which offers a service here in order to really make sure that sustainability certification, quality certification is provided to the companies. So as you see, it's quite a broad church, the special initiative. But in that broad church, we want to help a long-term and win-win partnership for you. And this is what we want to engage with you in, mostly by also project development. So we have a dedicated team in Europe that will connect with your company and try to support your investment project if it also creates jobs in Africa. Usually how we have been working is that we assemble several companies together for them to form in one company consortia, so that we can use synergies in between the company consortia, but also leverage a much larger project and really set up something that is overarching and country crossing. And how could this cooperation look like? We could, for example, accelerate your current project development in the initiation of your project by working with you here in Europe, and then through our local teams in Africa that build on the experience of the German Development Corporation for over 50 years now, active in most of these countries. We could lend you political support for example, the site selection and the construction of production facilities. And then once those are established, we could help you with joint training of local employees up to full production. And so these support offers are, of course, open to both African and European companies, especially if, for example, you are a European business with an African subsidiary or you have a joint venture. We're very happy to support these kinds of structures. In what I just described, our Business and Invest Lab, we would then try to really find the right support measure for you and your project. So we could help you with advice on industry specifics and local basic conditions. If, for example, for investment to be made, you require a feasibility study, we could finance that as well. And generally help you to gain contacts and help them with matchmaking through our local teams. We could provide you help with logistic processes and clearing of customs, which can be an issue in many countries, and generally want to help you to establish a sustainable value and supply chain, so that we can focus on sectors that are also sort of future looking, in the future looking, and it can really help to be a driver of sustainability in African countries. And one way, big way, how we can support you is by financing, obviously, generally for training inside of your company, but also by strengthening local companies in Africa, strengthening local suppliers. Other ways how we can support you is, of course, with financing solutions. And one is the so-called development partnerships, which we have, our instrument is called Develop Public-Private Partnerships, PPP for jobs. And here, these partnerships would be an agreement between the private and public sector to promote an investment that not only supports your business case, but also promotes employment and generally benefits the local community. The funding for these projects ranges from about 100,000 euros to 2 million euros of public contributions. However, the public contribution can only be a maximum of 50% of the total investment. Then we have the investment facility for employment of the KfW Development Bank. Here, the focus is on investment grants that promote employment. And really, this is looking at large-scale infrastructure investments, for example. So if you have a problem with electricity connection at your local production site, if you want to connect your production site with the street, with the roads, for example, those are the things that this investment facility can target. And here the funding per project is larger, ranges from 1 million to 10 million. And as I mentioned, or as Jacqueline Groth has already mentioned, these are selected through so-called calls for proposals on a competitive basis. But here as well, we can support you to write your proposal, to really know what to put in and to have it up to a quality standard, so that you do stand a chance to then win funding here. And now, how could that look like concretely on the ground? I have already mentioned the Tunisian automotive sector. And here we have set up the so-called Tunisian Automotive Management Academy, or TAMA. The background here was that there was a lack of middle management personnel and generally low staff retention rates between a number of Tunisian automotive suppliers. And of course, in a situation like this, where there's a lot of competition, the costs for an individual company to move first are prohibitively high. So what really, there was a strong case there for us to step in to build a management academy that brings in all these competitors and solves their joint problem. And so the objective here was to provide an innovative training and through sort of these job partnerships that I have mentioned, further qualify the staff there. And the concrete goals were 260 training positions permanently, and to in the end create 7,500 jobs through employing more middle management personnel. The approach here taken was closely linked to the German dual system. And so a training center was established in that sense, in that way. And the content was middle management training in soft skills, generally lean project management, and issues of economics. And in order to make this more sustainable, we were looking at a train the trainers approach, in that we would really multiply the effect of the Tunisian Automotive Management Academy. And the results so far have been quite promising. So the official opening of the Tunisian Automotive Management Academy was in September 2019. First training rounds have been completed in February 2020. And now, due to the Corona crisis, we had to switch to online classes. And these have been offered since April, including a women's only class. And we have so far over 100 trainees completed. And actually, lots of local companies have recently joined in as well. So this is really a good example of how there is a case for an intervention of actors like the Special Initiative on Training and Job Creation to come in and to solve the problems of local companies based on their local needs. So in that sense, I think the next steps for us would be to invite you to contact us so that we could jointly develop your project and connect you with like-minded business partners in Europe and Africa, so that we can support you in the planning and the implementation of your investment on the side, so that we can jointly then create job perspectives for young people in Africa. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your contact. We have a website called www.invest-for-jobs.com. And you can write to that website at info@investforjobs.com, or you can write directly to me at marcel.tomkins@giz.de. I'm also on the website African European Entrepreneurs, so you can write me there, and I will connect you, either help you directly or connect you with the partner that best helps with your problem. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the continued cooperation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcel Tompkins of GIZ, German Cooperation Agency. You have offered us very interesting outlook for the support of projects which create jobs and training and professional training, particularly in Africa, with companies from all over Europe, but also if there are the partners together, let's say from Europe and Africa, also for African entrepreneurs. So that is very interesting. By the way, I would like to forward to you directly a question from the Q&A chat. There was one participant that was asking if these tools that you offered would also apply for startups, or if they are only for already companies with a business history, figures, and a certain dimension.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So the financing tools that I had just mentioned do focus mostly on already established businesses, because they do require a certain history to be visible. We do, however, have local support projects for startups. And this would, I think, depend on the country and the sector that the startup was targeting. So in that sense, I would again ask for that person to write to me. I think I will drop my email in the chat as well, so that we can then explore jointly whether there's a local opportunity for startup support, and how we can best make that match.
Great, yeah. I know, in fact, GIZ has different programs also for the digital sector, for example, Make IT, or the Digital Skills Accelerator Alliance. So there are things that you should try to explore by contacting directly Marcel Tompkins at GIZ. Thank you very much. Now we have Dr. James R. Kanagwa. He's the country representative for Ethiopia of Ecobank. Ecobank is one of the biggest banks in the African continent, most probably very well known to many Africans, not that much in Europe, of course, but they also have interesting programs and offers for SMEs, as he told us. And Dr. Kanagwa, I would like to give you the floor in order to present us your proposals and ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Fellow, am I out on here? Okay, I'll go ahead to my discussion. Looking at from a perspective of a lender who is practically doing work in Africa. Am I clear, Stefan?
I was wondering if we could maybe switch off the video because the quality is a little bit low of your audio, and the audio is the most important.
Just hold on.
Let's try.
Okay.
You can
Is it
stop
now?
the video. Stop video down in the menu. If you move the
Stop the
mouse
video.
on the screen, yeah. Because I think that covers big bandwidth.
Will that help?
Maybe let's try.
Will that help?
We hear you.
Is it better now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, lovely. I will go very briefly in terms of what we do as a lender, practically working in Africa for the last almost 30 years. And looking at the market, we work in almost 30, we're now in 36 African countries. And the challenges we have seen for SMEs, of course, we that SMEs take almost 85% of the business in Africa and largely informal, which is almost 60% of them create employment sector, largely. There are very few government opportunities, so everybody tries to start something up and looks for ways of getting financing. One of the challenges we've found that many is identifying, understanding critically what the SMEs are doing in different categories, different sectors. Of recent, of course, now we see the COVID has changed the perspective and the thinking. We have to look more at sustainable financing, ways in which we can really see that we can help them grow and not the economies. Some of what is critical is to find investment vehicles that can help in raising funds, because SMEs, yes, it's a business to support an economy, but again, you have to help along the way. You don't just give them financing and let them thrive. You don't lend SMEs money that they don't need. You need to support. Some of the things we are doing, one is we look at an SME, critically what they are doing, the financing is typically transaction based. If one, for instance, is a distributor of a corporate, we look at the value chain and support it. We support the value chain. In that instance, the SME will be able to grow. The typical plain vanilla products you have, the loans, overdrafts, and we have the asset-based products which you look into factoring, invoice discounting, and the like. But what is very important is for you to understand the customer and the transaction. That's when you can be able to price the risk. We also work with different agencies that also come in that have targeted particular sectors like agriculture, since men are in long-term nature, and they help in giving instruments to help in de-risking. We work with AFC, for instance, even the EU has programs, even the AFDB. All these help in providing instruments like guarantees that will make the cost of borrowing lower for the SMEs and enable them to grow. Because going out to get busy, it's much easier to get financing for a big corporate than an SME. There's always that missing middle. We've seen many funders coming into Africa to try and support this value chain. But again, the issue is understanding who the SME is. There's no clear data on the continent. We have to do it crudely. So people will come and say, we want to support an SME who has a turnover of $5 million there in Africa. But that is the kind of lens that is used. We need to help also our SMEs formalize, because most of them are not formalized. They are not registered, trade one-off. So it's hard to get what we do have work with an enemy, let them get registered, formalize with the right bodies, get financial and support them to grow. because the reason why Ecobank started was to help create an African entrepreneur, move from a sized business, from a small business to medium business, to regional corporate, and that's the essence of why we focused on working in Africa. So what critical is, one, understanding the SME. Two is how we raise capital. There are different alternatives of trying to create vehicles that will be alternatives to help support those businesses. They don't necessarily need the money, but they need instruments. We're seeing now with the CFTA that has taken shape, everyone is looking at doing how do we get the countries to work together, support their small businesses. The issue is how do we get the correct data to know we can be able to link one customer from, say, Uganda to Nigeria to Ethiopia. We've seen the risk of exchange losses in the regional trade. And by if it's trying to export small products from maybe Ethiopia to Togo, buy Ethiopian beer, buy the products, then sell beer, get it, exchange, sent to Togo, SOFA to Euro, back to the same losses, and that is quite phenomenal on the continent. What we are trying to do is using our one bank concept based in all these countries to see that we can give a view of the different customers, the different sectors, the different products, and that is you can be able to link the appropriate financing for the small businesses. I would like to pause at this stage and take any questions if they are. Taking cognizance of our internet here is not the best.
Now we don't hear you anymore. Just until the sentence, the internet is not the best. Sorry. Dr. Kanagwa?
Yes, best, sir.
Okay, please, could you repeat the last sentence?
I said I would like to pause here and take questions because our internet is not the best at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're working from a different operational zone. Yeah. So a question from Nigeria, how to somebody could access financing. We need to again go back to the same thing. What is about? What is the Z doing? What kind of the customer understand action? On that basis, you can be able to advise them.
Dr. Kanagwa, I am really very sorry. Your explanation was very interesting, but now it gets really very difficult to follow it. And for the interpreters, impossible to translate it. So maybe if you can try to get a better connection, maybe moving, I don't know if you're with a mobile phone or with a router. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, because suddenly overload. Maybe somebody in your neighboring offices is using internet very much. I'm really.
We're having a problem as country. Internet was shut down.
I know. Yeah, we know. Yeah. And it seems now that everybody is recovering and sending, of course, thousands of emails and online meetings like these and so on. Maybe you switch on your camera a second, just to see you. Thank you very much. See you.
I can take questions.
Yeah, maybe we could use the Q&A here in the tool to ask questions directly to Mr. Kanagwa. He can answer, and he's also on the platform businesslab 2020.african-european-entrepreneurs.com. You can contact him directly and also arrange a direct virtual meeting, video one-to-one, or even with two people, three people, sorry, in the next days, today, tomorrow, and in the next days. I would maybe go forward because it was really technically impossible with the translation because your sentences were continuously interrupted. If you agree, Dr. Kanagwa, is that okay? Can we go forward with the next speaker, I mean?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry to all the participants and attendees, but it's also very interesting what maybe Mrs. Ayele Sikabi Gabiam can tell us. You are the co-founder and partnership director of Lady Agri Impact Investment Hub. So if I can understand from that, you are supporting especially women entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
In Africa. But you're sitting in Brussels in Belgium, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
And you are from Cameroon?
No, I'm from Togolese. I'm Togolese by origin.
Togolese. Sorry.
Yes.
So maybe can you explain us a little bit how this impact investment hub works, Lady Agri?
Yes, sure. So I'm gonna do my presentation in French.
Great.
Just hold on a second.
If you prefer to speak French, you can. Huh?
Yes, so I'm gonna speak French. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Merci beaucoup pour l'invitation de ce matin. Donc, comme vous l'avez bien dit, Lady Agri Impact Investment Hub est une association qui a été créée en 2018 par 3 femmes entrepreneurs. Donc, il y a Hilary Barry, Aïda Asselson Bakri et moi-même, Ayele Gabiam. Alors, pourquoi nous avons créé Lady Agri? C'est parce qu'on s'est rendu compte qu'il fallait créer un écosystème vraiment favorable pour les femmes dans l'entrepreneuriat et surtout celles qui sont actives dans l'agro-industrie. Donc, le hub est composé de plusieurs experts, de plusieurs experts dans plusieurs disciplines.
Different experts in different fields, and they are in different in different countries in Africa. As you can see on the screen, we want to support women in agribusiness, and we've got 3 pillars. The first one is technical assistance, coaching, mentoring, training. The second one, and I'll talk about it a bit later, it's for them to have financing support which is accessible. The third one, it's access to the market through partnership, providers for the equipment, services, technology, all based in Europe. As you can see on the map, we are working in sub-Saharan Africa, and how could I say that? We've been active for over 20 years on the African continent, so we've got loads of experts who are really qualified in this field, who can really help. The goal is to establish bridges and to establish partnerships as well with European SMEs or international SMEs. If these SMEs would like to get into business with Africa. And would like, of course, businesses that are led by women. As I've just said, the improvements that need to be made. What is very interesting We need information systems, business information systems, in order to be able to improve what's happening on a day-to-day basis. As you can see, we are the center, we are the hub of the scheme. And we want to work with businesses in order to reinforce the skills of women. We really facilitate the access to investments, loans for the infrastructure, the equipment. We establish partnership with different markets. We need all the documents, all the labels that are necessary in order for them to access the markets, whatever the markets can be, Europeans, whatever they are. We are strengthening the solvability of these SMEs, solvency of these SMEs, because of course they have responsibilities towards the buyers. And this is for the growth of the business in order to be able to get in touch with new markets. As you can see here, this is access to technology, the exchanges you can see with the different partners, as we're based in Brussels. We've got, of course, local conditions. If there is a local solution to the problem, we prefer the local solution. So this morning, we need to talk about the access to finances. As you can see here on my slide, this is very difficult for SMEs in Africa. In Africa, all over Africa, it's very difficult. It's a real obstacle. It's a major obstacle, even more so for women in agribusiness, because some of them want to go from informal to formal, so they need financing. For those who are starting and want to grow their business to grow, they need financing as well. So what we can see on the field at the moment for the past 2.5 years, there is a lack of investments. This is because of the management cost. It's really high. And interest rates as well. They are up to 37%. It's extremely difficult to have access to financing. What we've noticed as well, it's almost impossible to find financing from 25,000 to €500,000. And this is the type of financing these businesses want. It's what we call meso financing. So we need affordable interest rates, of course. So the investing funds are not interested. For them, €25,000 is nothing. It's not enough. So they are really into macrofinancing, which means several million of euros, which is not suitable for what we're talking about. So for the past 2.5 years, I've been talking a lot with investors, and I'm trying them to go towards for them to move towards agribusiness. Agribusiness is the future in Africa. You've heard about this. We've talked about this. Whether it's local banks or foreign banks, European banks, we need to make a change. We need to switch and to move towards this type of sector. So there is an improvement. I'll talk about it later. So if SMEs do not grow in Africa, Africa is not going to be interesting for others. It's very difficult to create jobs for women, for women, even for young people. It's a huge issue. For young people, it's a huge issue. So we need to push investors to go towards this type of market. Here, we've got different segments. What women often want is microfinancing, 10,000 euros. Then we go commercial banks, Ecobank, for example. We've talked about it. Then we go a little bit higher, investments, in order to establish the business. Agribusiness, but maybe a different product. And then you move a step up, guarantees, impact, social impact, and then at the top, you've got European, international funds. So the idea is mentoring, coaching, to offer all these to these women, to give them the opportunity to access the banking system. And we are the link between these women and the banks. Very often they do not have all the documents that are needed. So what we do, we help them to gather whatever they need, all the documents they will be asked for, so that they can get what they are asking for from the bank. Maybe you've got a few things that you need to tweak, to change. So this is what expertise is all about. You have to be very, the pragmatist approach of Lady Agri. Yeah. You've got all the different banks in Europe, but also we've got local banks as well, Ecobank, Access Bank, Cofina, they are all here. Africa Invest, for example, and we work a lot with them. Women work with them in Africa. So we've got a few photos. I'd like to show them. So this is what we're doing on the field. In the Ivory Coast, different countries, Cameroon. You've got a little, a small idea of what we're doing everywhere. In Kenya, SMEs are really active and really take a huge part in the development of the country. And lately, we've organized a supporting campaign for women. They've benefited from our scheme, and they want to show that regardless of COVID-19, they are still here and they are still carrying on. They help the supplying chains. They carry on for export, for fruit, vegetable, that you can see in European supermarkets, regardless of COVID-19. Use ship, for example, for mangoes overseas. These women were very resilient to face this COVID-19 crisis. And I want to show that regardless of the events, they are still here. And we need to find alternatives for these businesses. If you need if you need to find out more about us, please feel free to go on my site. You've got the address on screen, lady-agri.org. I'll be there. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for listening to me.
Gabiam of Lady Agri, Impact Investment Hub for Women Entrepreneurs in the agro business in Africa. Very interesting what you are doing, and really you have involved a lot of entrepreneurs already in Africa. And I wish to your initiative a great success, that you continue to deliver this mezzanine or middle dimensional financing which is needed. Absolutely. So last but absolutely not least is the director of Bloomfield Investment Corporation, Mr. Stanislas Zézé. Bloomfield Corporation is doing ratings, and ratings might have a wrong image in the world after the financial crisis. But we would absolutely need a good rating tool also for small and medium-sized enterprises between Africa and Europe, because rating can create trust, can create the right financial background, of course, also to invest. And that is very much needed. Mr. Zézé, would you like to explain us a little bit how you proceed, where you get your data, and how this can be used best? Thank you very much.
Merci.
And so these data are really helpful and necessary. In 2008, the crisis showed how important it was. On the continent, it's more and more important because of the growth of SMEs. We need a financing system, an investing system. And why this system, this financing system? You need a credible environment. So we are the link between the investor who wants to invest and the one who borrows. There is, and generally speaking, SMEs have loads of trouble to find the financing, the type of financing they need. We establish what we call the credit quality, and as well the capacity and the will of SMEs to absorb, to find the funds they are looking for, and to use them and to be able to give the money back at the end. We started 13 years ago on the continent. So we've established the quality of the investments. The advantage is to establish the quality of the intrinsics, of the loan. Generally, they borrow in their local currency and they give the money back in their local currency as well. So
Toutes les PME sur le continent ont plutôt des transactions dans leur monnaie locale. Donc, le rôle de l'agent de notation financière ici, évidemment, va permettre à l'investisseur d'avoir une visibilité très claire sur la capacité de cette PME-là à faire face à ses obligations financières. Nous sommes sur un continent où, en majorité, 95% du tissu économique est composé de PME. Sauf que les PME ne contribuent en général qu'à entre 18 et 20% du PIB. Donc, elles créent beaucoup d'emplois, c'est clair, mais en termes de contribution à la richesse, elles ont une contribution qui est très faible. Et pourquoi? C'est cette faiblesse.
Contribution is quite low. Why? Because SMEs, they are in an ecosystem that does not enable them to be solid SMEs and strong SMEs, because most of SMEs are quite small businesses. I'm talking about like formal and legal PMEs, not those that are not legal. I'm talking about the legal ones, but they do not work together because they don't have any financial tools and any financial structure, because usually they are built around just one person. So, I mean, this trend is slightly changing, but the ecosystem is starting to be built around the SMEs. But we need stronger and more resilient SMEs. We need them to be more attractive. We need them to have strong structures, and this is coming now. You talked earlier about ecosystem surrounding SMEs. So this is a trend that we are seeing being implemented. So progressively, they are getting stronger and they're getting more important. So regarding the financing of these companies, someone said earlier that there is a huge gap between the conventional financing systems of banks and investment funds and the needs of the SMEs and the ability of the SMEs to match the criteria required by those conventional financial tools. So what is important today, we're talking about African and European SMEs and their partnerships. It is important for us to look at investments directly in SMEs in forms of equity, in forms of equities, because it is difficult for the SMEs to find funds with banks because they do not, they cannot match the criteria and they cannot provide what the bank is asking for. So it is the investment funds should be adapted. They need to adapt themselves to the SMEs and the needs of the SMEs. The SMEs cannot adapt themselves to the banks and the investment funds. So it's the other way around, because they need to understand the reality of the SMEs and their needs. So what we need to do, we need to have funds coming from Africa or African investors that would have what we're talking about, maybe 50,000 euros to 1 million euro. This is what we need. This is what the SMEs need in terms of financing. So the role that we have today is strengthening the companies when they apply for funds, and to help them with reports when they need to assess their risks, and maybe they will raise the alarms for the investors and maybe for the banks. And
Monsieur Zézé, on est un petit peu en délai. Si
I'm sorry, Mr. Z, but we're running a bit behind. So maybe you can tell people how they can contact you? Yes, if you want to contact me, you can just go online. I thought that the point of this conference was to exchange That's the problem when you speak last. You just end up with half of your presentation. If you've got something important to say, please go on. If you've got something else, something important to say, please go on. No, I mean, if I don't have time, I mean, that's fine. I'll just conclude. But I think I just say, I mean, the main thing has been said. All right, thank you. I will ask my colleague Giovanna. Okay.
May I ask you to maybe relaunch a question if we have a question for the panelists?
Yes. CIRR Export Financing Program loan with a European External Investment Plan guarantee. Back to back, LC. Mr. Kanagwa? Yes, I think, great. Did you hear the question?
I think let me read it from here. How can we blend Africa CIR Export Financing Program loan weapon grant back to back? It's just a collaboration between the two institutions as a financial institution. This is a typical hypothetical question. I mean, looking at the two collaboration, we already have a collaboration, I think, with some of the EU on a number of programs. EU has also been able to finance provide financing for certain projects, even involving trade as well. So his question is how can we, it's just looking how do we enhance this collaboration? Is there? What is critical is for you is to get in touch with the relevant, whoever is best. If it's based in Nigeria or Ghana, we have an Ecobank business there. You can always link up with them. We have a corporate finance division, and they can always be able to help you with the trade finance.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Giovanna,
and then
another question.
The next question would be if you can say something about the size of SMEs that you're supporting.
Well, when looking at SMEs as Ecobank, we look at SMEs based on the value chain. What does the SME do? Each market behaves differently. The way you look at an SME in Nigeria will not be the same as you look at an SME in Malawi or Burundi. So it is very, very important to know what the SME is doing, which market, in which sector they playing, because each country will have certain specifics. For instance, I will tell you, most of the East African economies are trade-driven economies. So SMEs are involved largely in trade, importing and exporting trade. So what they need more, their requirements are more of trade facilitation. You find letters of credit, certain loans or overdrafts, or that they need to maybe to bid guarantees. It really depends on the market where you are best for us to determine how we can be able to support you. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We are really running out of time.
Yeah.
A lot of questions were related to how we can contact speakers. So in case you didn't manage, this is for the audience, in case you didn't manage to get the contact, you can always write to us on info@african-european-entrepreneurs.com or to my colleague Marcel Tompkins, who already left the contact. So you can always ask us, we will forward the contacts because we are in touch with the speakers. I would say that is the...
Yeah, thank you very much, Giovanna. And also you can use the link here in the chat that I have posted in this moment to all panelists and attendees, where you can contact directly the speakers as far as they are registered. But Dr. Kanagwa, for example, is registered, and also Mr. Zézé and Mrs. Zikavi Gabiam. Of course, also Marcel Tompkins. Sorry. So I declare now this session on the financial tools finished.